If I told you that this world, everything around you, the chair you're sitting on, maybe the sound of my voice.
Even your own memories.
Right, even that memory of what you ate for breakfast this morning. What if all of it was just lines of code, running on some kind of massive cosmic computer? How would that feel?
It's a deeply unsettling question.
Do you panic? Or, I don't know, do you just start looking for the cheat codes?
Well, that's the core of what we're getting into in today's deep dive. We are talking about the simulation hypothesis, and this isn't just for late-night science fiction anymore.
No, this is a serious proposition.
It is. It's being debated by philosophers, physicists, and especially by thinkers in places like Silicon Valley. The theory, basically, is that our entire universe is a highly sophisticated simulation being run by a more advanced post-human civilization.
And this really is the ultimate deep dive because it fundamentally challenges what reality even means. The sources we've compiled take this from, a philosophical thought experiment and push it right into the territory of statistical probability.
And technological projection. Our mission here is to move past the abstract and really unpack the specific evidence that people point to.
The things that make this idea so compelling and, let's be honest, a little bit disturbing.
Exactly. We're going to look at the arguments from thinkers like Nick Bostrom, who kind of forces you into a corner where this theory doesn't feel like a choice, but almost like an inevitable conclusion based on the math.
We're trying to see why so many smart people are now convinced that the chances of us living in base reality are, well, almost zero.
So let's start right there with the statistical trap.
Okay, yes, this is the argument that really corners you. It takes us straight to the philosopher Nick Bostrom and his famous trilemma. He presents three possibilities, and the kicker is at least one of them has to be true. You don't get to say none of the above.
And this whole trilemma, it hinges on just one assumption, that technological capability generally increases over time. If you grant that, then one of these three outcomes for intelligent life is pretty much guaranteed.
Okay, so option one. It's dark, but it's simple. Humans go extinct before we ever reach what's called a post-human stage.
Meaning before we get the computing power to run our own ancestor simulations.
Right, we wipe ourselves out. Nuclear war, climate change, runaway AI, you name it. The great filter is either right in front of us or we're in it now.
Okay, so that's option one. Option two is maybe a bit more optimistic, but it's still kind of sad in a way. It's that post-human civilizations do exist. They just have absolutely no interest in running simulations of their past.
They get all this godlike power and just decide not to. Hey, who cares about the past? It was messy.
Something like that. They have the capability, but not the motivation, so they never bother to create simulated universes like ours.
Which brings us to option three, the one that, gets all the headlines. It's that, given the first two are unlikely, the only logical outcome left is that we are almost certainly living inside a computer simulation right now.
That you, listening to this, are a piece of incredibly sophisticated software.
So why? Why does the argument pivot so hard to option three being the most likely? It feels like such a leap.
It's purely a numbers game. It's probability. If you believe we probably won't go extinct, you reject option one, and you think it's unlikely that every single advanced civilization for all of time will lose interest in its own history-rejecting option two.
Then you're left with a universe where advanced beings are running simulations.
And here's the key. Why would they run just one?
They wouldn't. If you can create a universe, you're not going to stop at one. You'd run thousands, millions, maybe billions of them for research, for art, for entertainment.
Exactly. You'd have server farms the size of planets running ancestor simulations. And in that scenario, the number of simulated digital minds would instantly and just exponentially outnumber the minds in the one single original base reality.
So if you just pick a conscious mind at random, like yours,
the odds that you're one of the billions of simulated minds rather than one of the original organic ones become overwhelming.
That probabilistic logic is what gets people like Elon Musk. He's quoted in the sources saying there's basically a 1 in billions chance that we're in base reality.
It's just the logical endpoint if you assume progress continues.
It's a perfect transition, actually, because that brings us to the second pillar of this whole theory. We can move from these abstract statistics to something that feels much more tangible.
The incredible, explosive speed of our own technological progress.
The sources use this video game analogy, and I think it's perfect for grounding the idea. You don't have to imagine some far-off alien future. Just look at our own recent past.
Let's roll the clock back just 50 years. To 1972, what was the absolute peak of digital reality back then?
Pong. It was Pong.
Yeah.
Two white rectangles and a little square dot bouncing between them. That was it. That was cutting edge.
A flat, black and white, blocky world. Now, fast forward just that half century to today. What do we have?
We have Unreal Engine 5. We have photorealistic 3D worlds that millions of people are playing in at the same time, all networked together.
We have games using things like ray tracing to simulate the physics of light so accurately that, honestly, sometimes you can't distinguish gameplay footage from a real video.
And it's not just how it looks, it's the sheer complexity of it. The scale. Millions of calculations a second to render these huge open worlds. And we did that in 50 years. That leap it's staggering.
And that speed is the whole point. The argument is, if a relatively primitive species like us can get this close to indistinguishable reality in just a few decades, what could a civilization that's, say, 1,000,000 years ahead of us be capable of?
It makes the idea of a perfect simulation seem not just possible, but kind of inevitable.
The historical path we're on seems to prove the concept. It validates that the journey from simple code to a reality you can't tell apart from the real thing is, in the grand scheme of things, incredibly short.
So if it's achievable, and we just established that probability says it's likely being done on a massive scale,
then the odds are we're living inside one of those games right now. The rate of our own progress makes it feel less like wild speculation and more like just a simple extrapolation.
okay, this is where it starts to get genuinely unsettling for me. We're moving from what we could build to looking at the foundations of what our reality is built on.
Right. If we're software, then the fundamental laws of physics that we study in a lab, they might just be the system limitations, the rules of the code.
The programming.
Exactly. Some physicists are seriously arguing that the strange bedrock constants of our universe look suspiciously like programming efficiencies, like shortcuts to make the system run without crashing.
Let's start with maybe the most famous and confusing one, the observer effect in quantum mechanics.
The double slit experiment.
Yeah. The idea that tiny particles, like electrons, act like a wave of possibilities until you look at them. The moment you try to measure one, the wave collapses and it becomes a single, definite particle in a single place.
From a normal physics perspective, this makes no sense at all. It's so counterintuitive. Why should the act of observation of consciousness change the physical state of matter?
But if you think of the universe as a giant video game engine.
It makes perfect sense. Think about the computational load. Why would the main computer waste processing power, rendering every single subatomic particle in the entire universe in perfect, high-fidelity detail all the time?
It couldn't. It would be an impossible amount of data to process.
So the system is efficient, it's lazy. The sources connect this directly to a technique in modern graphics called foveated rendering. A VR headset, for instance, only renders the very center of your vision in high resolution.
The part where you're actively looking.
Right. Everywhere else in your periphery, it's low res to save power. So the universe might be doing the same thing. The particles you aren't looking at remain in a low energy, low resolution state of potential.
Reality only snaps into focus when a consciousness demands it. It's a real-time optimization. But what about the hard limits? The unbreakable rules of the system.
That brings us to the speed of light. It's a constant. It's absolute. Nothing in our universe can go faster than about 186,000 miles per second. And from a physics standpoint, that's deeply weird. Why that specific speed? Why is it a perfect, unbreakable barrier?
But if you frame it as a digital constraint,
it becomes the simulation's processing speed limit, a latency cap. If the supercomputer running our universe can only process information and update the state of the simulation at a certain maximum rate,
then that rate becomes the ultimate speed limit for everything inside the simulation. Nothing can travel faster than the processor can update its position. It's the universe's refresh rate.
And if the speed of light is the time limit, then the Planck length is the resolution limit.
The smallest possible unit of space.
That's right. It's the point where our understanding of physics just breaks. We cannot measure or even conceive of anything smaller.
So in the simulation model, the Planck length is just the universe's pixel.
It's the resolution of the grid the universe is built on. You can't see anything smaller because you've hit the fundamental resolution of the display.
That's a powerful way to look at it, because it takes all these separate, bizarre physical constants and gives them one single coherent explanation.
They're all pre-programmed rules designed to keep the system stable and efficient.
Which, of course, leads to the question that gives me the most dread. If the universe is code, what happens when there's a bug? What do the errors look like?
And this is where the theory definitely bleeds into pop culture. We start talking about phenomena that are, let's be clear, They are not scientifically verifiable,
Yeah.
but they do illustrate the kind of thing you might look for,
Right, like the Mandela effect, this idea of a collective false memory.
where huge groups of people remember something a certain way, like the Berenstain Bears being spelled with an E, only to find out that official reality is different.
Now, the sources are clear that this is almost certainly just, cognitive bias or how our brains misremember things. It's very weak evidence.
Very weak. But the idea of it is chilling. What if the simulators decided to apply a patch to rewrite a small piece of history? And maybe the patch didn't perfectly overwrite all the memory banks of the inhabitants.
You'd get these glitches, mass confusion.
A mass file corruption. And then you have something like déjà vu, that incredibly strange, powerful feeling that you have lived through this exact moment before.
That one is deeply unnerving to me.
Well, if you're looking for a system bug, that could be anything from a momentary server reset to a brief replay loop in the code as the simulation stutters and catches up with itself.
So while these glitches aren't proof of anything, they do feed into this very specific kind of existential dread.
Yeah.
The idea that our memories, our history, our sense of self might not be reliable.
That it could all be manipulated by outside forces we can't even perceive. But whether the glitches are real or just in our heads, the conclusion of the hypothesis is the same. If it's true, then what we call consciousness is just code.
Incredibly complex code, but just code running on an external hard drive.
And the ultimate consequence of that is terrifyingly simple.
If the experiment ends, or the system crashes, the plug just gets pulled.
Our universe and everyone and everything in it just ceases to exist instantly. No afterlife, no echo, just the program shutting down.
Wow.
So to synthesize all this, the statistical argument tells us it's highly probable we're simulated simply because simulated minds will vastly outnumber organic ones.
Our own technological progress shows that creating such a simulation is not only possible, but likely inevitable for any advanced civilization.
And finally, the fundamental laws and limits of our own physics, the speed of light, the Planck length, the weirdness of the observer effect, they look a lot like programming constraints and optimization shortcuts.
It's compelling because it takes all this established weirdness from different fields and offers one single, unified, and in some ways rational explanation.
It makes the world seem more logical.
In a terrifying way, but maybe infinitely less comforting. Which leaves us with a final question.
The one that really matters.
If we are just code in a simulation, who is holding the controller? And does it matter?